Welcome back, everybody, to Game 3 of Hite Sparkyz versus South Korea Telecom T1, and this is going to be a Terran versus Terran, an exciting Terran versus Terran, I would guess. This is going to be Leta versus Fantasy for SKT1. This is going to be Leta up here as the red Terran in the northern position. His opponent is Fantasy as the teal Terran in the southwest position that we are seeing here. And wow, these are two of the most creative, kind of wild Terran players, and I expect to see something totally insane. That's my initial call. I'm expecting to see like both players nuking each other simultaneously, or like some super clutch EMP of mass battle cruisers so they can't Yamato, or something, I don't know, completely wild. But all of those, well, I guess both of those predictions rely on this match going into very late game, which may or may not happen. Both of these players like to play very aggressively with vultures. Leta definitely likes a lot of wraiths, so does Fantasy, maybe a little bit less than the vultures, but still. And it looks like, is that an early command center? No, maybe that's going to be some sort of cheese. This could be another option, so Leta going for something, I don't know, maybe it's just going to be a forward barracks that it'll use as scouting later on, but I thought he already started building his barracks. Maybe maybe that was just the supply depot. But yeah, Leta has been on a ridiculous roll. He has won his last 5 in a row. In his last 10, he's won 8 of those last 10. I think 11 of his last 14 is the current streak, and in those last in his last 11 games, 5 of them have been on Moon Glaive, and he's won all of them. So he is becoming something of a map specialist on Moon Glaive. That's the map that they're playing on now, if you hadn't gathered, if I hadn't mentioned that before. So Leta has all sorts of advantages going on right now. He has just been destroying Terrans all over the place, really. So it turns out that early SCV was not, in fact, going for any sort of cheese. It was checking for any cheese from Fantasy, and it's pretty interesting. He ends up going for a 14 command center, so huge early economy coming from Leta, but playing it a little bit safe and using that building SCV to scout in the middle of the map to make sure that there's not going to be some sort of bunker rush before he commits to the 14 command center. So pretty interesting play, then putting down the barracks just outside of that command center to help wall it off and defend it from any early pressure once Fantasy scouts this, because once Fantasy scouts the 14 command center, he's going to be like, oh no, you're not going to get away with that. I'm imagining there's going to be at least 1 or 2 vultures coming in to try to say something about that 14 CC. But anyways, regardless, so Fantasy, I've talked about Leta and Leta. So Fantasy, he is doing pretty well. You know, he's not had the season that Leta's had, particularly this recently, but he has won 4 of his last 5 games. A couple of them being on Moon Glaive. He did lose his last game against Really, but you know, in general, overall he's 10-7 for the season, and it looks like he is going for a pretty early starport here before, or as he's expanding into his natural expansion. So possibly some early wraiths, or maybe some early dropships. That scout for Leta almost got in, but that vulture was able to stop it. And the scout for Fantasy comes very close. I don't know if it actually saw the command center up and running, though. It definitely saw the 2 Marines and the bunker, but did he know that that was to protect a 14 command center? Not sure. It definitely didn't see a vulture or anything like that. But still, we're going to have to see where Fantasy decides to go with this starport. Is it going to be for early wraiths, or is it going to be for dropships? So Leta is countering with his own starport up in the north, and it looks like Fantasy has committed to dropships, probably. He's already building his control towers, so I'm thinking he's probably going to go for vulture drops. That is a very Fantasy-esque play, to go for vulture harassment, and dropships are the way to do that a lot of the times. Although Fantasy is known to just run them by, too, so you never know. Fantasy could go all sorts of ways, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a dropship, especially since the control tower's not blinking. The first tank is also out for Fantasy, so his tech is going to be a little bit in the lead because Leta went for that early economy, and he's building a Wraith. So Leta is going 14cc into a one-port Wraith build, at least. He already has a tank as well, and his machine shop is spinning, so it looks like he's probably going to be going for siege mode to help defend that natural expansion that he set up early, and but then going to be going for Wraiths to do a little bit of attacking of his own, oh, actually, it's going to be a Wraith from Fantasy as well. I was completely wrong about that dropship. He built a control tower. He just hasn't researched Cloak yet, but he does have at least one Wraith out, and Leta has one Wraith out as well. So Leta's Wraith is going to be scouted out by that one Vulture that Fantasy had out, and now he is researching Cloak, so I don't think Leta definitely doesn't know that another Wraith is out. Well, now he does, but so he's got it. I don't know, I think that was a bad play there by Fantasy. If he could have suffered through this and used maybe just his Marines to help defend against that, he could have hidden that Wraith a little bit longer until he already had Cloak out, and then he might have been able to do a little bit of harassment. But now that Leta has seen that Wraith, he is already building an armory. He's going to have Goliaths out. He's probably building an academy as well, to get scans, and he should be in pretty good shape to defend against this. He's gotten harassed by Wraiths a couple of times in this streak, and he's been able to do a pretty good job of defending against that. It looks like Cloak is researched pretty quickly, though, and those two Wraiths are going to be able to slow down the production of that armory. So those Goliaths are going to be a little bit late, and so Fantasy actually doing a pretty good bit of damage right here. You know, just sniping off a couple of these SCVs. I think Leta really needs to be repairing some of these SCVs that are getting attacked, but there he goes. He finally is doing that, but still with two Wraiths, they are able to take down SCVs pretty quickly, and Leta's having to pull a lot of SCVs off of the line to help finish that armory build. That armory is done now, but still no detection either from Leta. He's just got his couple of Marines, and they're going to be able to take a couple of shots to this one Wraith that has run out of cloaking, but other than that, there is no detection for Leta. He has built up a pretty sizable group of tanks, and it looks like he's just, maybe he's just not concerned about building Goliaths at the moment, or I guess now he's just being able to. But he does have 4 factories to Leta's 3. Leta's now, to Fantasy's 3. Fantasy is just now building his 3rd, while Leta already has 4, and he's been producing tanks on through all of them. So despite losing some of those SCVs, I think really that's just going to be counteracting some of the early economic advantage that Leta had because of going for the 14cc. So good harassment by Fantasy, and Leta is, I wouldn't say he's in trouble because he already did have a lead in terms of economy. He probably had some extra SCVs anyways because he had his command center out earlier, but Fantasy definitely narrowing the margin right there with very good Wraith play, and I don't think he lost a single Wraith, whereas Leta lost his one Wraith almost immediately. Oh, those Goliaths almost came in and was able to snipe off one of those Wraiths as I'm talking about it. Most of those Wraiths are definitely injured, and cloaking has been gone for a while from them, but they are recharging, and so pretty soon they'll be able to cloak up. I'm sure by now Leta has decided to build an academy and get some comsat stations going up. Yeah, I can see on that command center that he's got comsat stations, so he will be able to detect. And this is now that the initial pressure has died down, this is going to be more of a map control game later on. Leta moving in, he's got a little bit more sizable force right now. Oh goodness, he's walking right into the spider mines, finally scans and clears them out. But, you know, using his early economy to his advantage and building up a pretty large group of forces right now. Their fantasy is trying to sneak in those vultures, like I was saying, but reinforcement troops, fortunately for Leta, in position to defend his natural expansion. Excuse me. Another couple of factories going down for Leta, so he is really pumping as many factories as he can possibly manage with these two bases, also keeping a